With that, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us for another edition of our water issues talks. This morning, we get to hear from not one but two of our GreenCorps members, and they're going to tell us about two really interesting projects that they've been working on for the past year. Lenna Johnsen and Becca Krasky. And our first speaker is going to be Lenna, who is going to tell us about the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council. The Stormwater Research Council is an organization of stormwater professionals and practitioners that researches urban stormwater management and transfers that knowledge to professionals that can use it to mitigate the impacts of runoff. A key arm of their research program is tech transfer, conveying research results from academia into professional practice and general knowledge through education, outreach, and training. Lenna Johnsen is here, as I said, to present some of her work, bolstering the existing tech transfer efforts, setting up new processes, and helping to envision the future of that program. Lenna is a Minnesota GreenCorps member, serving at the University of Minnesota's Water Resources Center and Minnesota Sea Grant. She has a master's degree in city planning from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a bachelor's degree in architecture from the University of Minnesota. Prior to her GreenCorps term, she worked as a placemaking consultant and a micro-mobility proposal writer, but spent the bulk of her career as a researcher at MIT's Sensible City Lab and Urban Risk Labs. Lenna, it is great to have you with us. Take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I will go ahead and share my screen. The sort of classic, everybody hold your breath as the slides load. Could I just get a verification that you can see them? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I know Becca and I are both really excited to share some of our projects over the past year as we look towards the final 3 weeks of our GreenCorps term. As mentioned, I'll be sharing a bit about the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council and the research program that they put on, but I did sort of want to, there we go, start with an introduction briefly about what the GreenCorps program is. I think I saw the names of a couple of our coordinators from the PCA, so hopefully I do okay with this. After that, I'll talk a bit about my host site and sort of the core project that I've been working on. And then we get to my perhaps not so imaginatively titled Bridging the Gap Technology Transfer and looking at a bit of my service from the 5,000 foot level down to the half-inch level. But to start off, in case you're not familiar with the GreenCorps program, it is an AmeriCorps program that's coordinated by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. It aims to preserve and protect Minnesota's environment while training a new generation of environmental professionals. Members serve across the entire state, full-time at host sites for 11 months. And this year, there have been 4 different sort of concentrations, if you will. Becca and I are both in the green infrastructure improvements concentration. So that's folks working with forestry and stormwater. And I did want to put the names of our fellow green infrastructure improvements members up on the screen. They've been doing fabulous work, and if you run into them, feel free to ask them. I'm going to put them on the spot without them even knowing. Ask them about their service. It's been a great service here, and I know everyone's really enthusiastic about the contributions they've been able to make to the state and the environment. I myself, as mentioned, I've been serving at the University of Minnesota's Water Resources Center, as well as the university's Sea Grant program. I'm going to go ahead and assume that folks are fairly familiar with these organizations, so I'll breeze through these next slides. But the Water Resources Center is one of, I believe it's 58 nationwide. Essentially, each state and territory has one. And they look to advance the science of clean water through extension education as well as research. And they proctor, or I suppose administer, the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council, which, as mentioned in that introduction, is an organization of stormwater professionals, practitioners, managers, and so on, who facilitate the completion of urban stormwater research. Together, these organizations run the Stormwater Research and Technology Transfer Program, using funds from the Clean Water, Land and Legacy Amendment, as well as contributions from cities, watersheds, private companies, as well as my other host site, Minnesota Sea Grant. My presentation today focuses pretty exclusively on my contributions to this program, but I do want to acknowledge Sea Grant as my institutional home base. So the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council has an advisory board, which is actually looking for more members. If you're interested, there is a link on the bottom right. They establish research priorities in stormwater, starting from a 2018 research roadmap that was built out of listening sessions and surveys conducted across the state. We have recently refreshed those research priorities using focus groups in surveys this last fall. So I participated and helped run a survey focus group up in the Duluth area. They run competitive research RFPs. There will be a new one launched this fall. And all of this this research together forms a pretty, I would say it's a pretty impressive portfolio of cutting edge stormwater research. Topics run the range. This is just a really quick snapshot of, you have iron enhanced sand filters, BMPs like street sweeping, and contaminants of emerging concern, chloride, ponds, performance of trees. Altogether, there have been 36 research projects since the program was started just a few years ago. 25 of those have been completed, 11 are currently active, and 5 with a focus on stormwater ponds. But sort of a key arm is not just the fact that this is producing cutting edge research, but this idea of technology transfer. And this is a quote I've taken from the European Union. Actually has a whole arm of sort of their governance that looks at how to convey results from scientific and technological research into the marketplace. But I thought I would walk through quickly sort of what technology transfer means, because frankly, despite spending a lot of my career in academic research spaces, I had not heard this term before my service at the Water Resources Center. So if you can kind of imagine the sort of traditional, you have research needs that researchers filter to specific questions. They conduct research, they answer those questions, they have results. Those results are published through final reports or academic papers or presentation at academic conferences, even PhD thesis defenses, that sort of communication of research results. But on the other hand, you have sort of your desired impact, right, of what this research has done. And you want your identified audiences to sort of take your research results and through practical applications, be able to impact the world around you in the environment and stormwater in this particular case. But this is perhaps where I'm starting to lean a little bit too much on that bridging the gap. You can see there's a bit of a gap there between the research results and the impacts. And that's where technology transfer comes in, where you can translate these research results into sort of more specific outputs, such as tools and guides, training videos, publications in trade magazines, things that speak directly to those audiences that you're hoping to bring your research further into impacts. And so this process is what technology transfer is. So this brings me to my title, Bridging the Gap. You have to forgive me. I feel like every other week you see a presentation titled Bridging the Gap. But I do want to be frank here and say this is a couple of loose planks. This isn't a wide gap here. I do want to acknowledge the state of Minnesota has some phenomenal technology transfer happening. The Minnesota Stormwater Seminar Series is widely attended. It's incredibly popular. You have work from the Water Resources Center already through Maggie Karshnia's Clean Sweep program. You have the Water Resources Conference. You have the Minnesota Stormwater Manual. There's a lot of tools already out there to start to get these research results into the hands of those who need it. But as you sort of look towards another RFP, you have a moment of immense growth for this program. The question sort of became, how can you build on and cement some of the great successes they've already had, and how can you set up procedures and systems for future success? And so that's where I come in specifically. You've already heard my bio, so I won't beleaguer this too much. I've worn many hats in my past. which has been a great, I guess I would say, a great asset for the last year. And my host site has been great in sort of letting me flex around and do things like contribute to RFP language and give feedback on project reports. But I think on the whole, it's really let me understand sort of both sides of the researcher doing the science and then the sort of the reporting, we have money we have to account for sides of both. So my project, I'll sort of quickly go through this. One of the primary goals was sort of taking stock of the sort of the great thoughts and brainstorms that had already been taken, that had already been happening before I even arrived. In a previous life, I was a consultant, so I love a good slide deck and I love organizing ideas in that way. And so using that as a vehicle to identify sort of short-term actionable items as well as longer-term visioning, putting things in from two pairs. So identifying in some short sentences what the challenges are and identifying a sort of North Star or a vision of what this program could deliver. And then these sort of from two pairs turned into 5 sort of recommendations, I guess, which you can see them on the screen, so I won't read them to you, but I am certainly not somebody to come in and say, well, you really need a virtual reality application to communicate stormwater research. I think at the end of the day, this is a very practical problem, and that sort of practical solutions and on the ground stuff at the 1/2-inch scale can really lead to great innovations in stormwater. So it's really simple stuff like improving sharing efforts or resources to make the work happen, like templates, connecting the stormwater community, starting to look at how the research projects themselves are structured and how sort of advisory voices can be brought in earlier on to help researchers think through these projects. Because researchers also want to see their work and their results out in the field making an impact. And so sort of in a tangible way, these have shown up in the technology transfer plan that the subcommittee of the Minnesota Research Council has been putting together. Looking towards the future, it's also come out in things like project flowcharts, lots of arrows and bullet points and term definitions, which leads me to sort of another thing, which is the visualizing concepts and I guess sweating the small stuff in decks and documents. I'm somebody, my background's in architecture, so I'm very sort of keen on making sure images align and that font choices are nice, that you don't use too many colors and that sorts of things. And I think one of the things I've been able to do over the last year, and I think one of the great things about GreenCorps as a program is sometimes you just need somebody else. You need an extra set of hands who doesn't already have 1,000,001 things on their plate to be able to take the time to do that sort of thing. And so that's either setting up document templates or taking our new research priorities and turning them into icons that hopefully you can understand at a glance, or setting up templates for a mid-year report. I don't know how many in the audience today were at our annual meeting last week, but you will have seen probably me stressed out as every researcher was using the same slide deck to present their progress reports. And again, I'm going to say hopefully, because I'm setting up these standardization processes and templates and helping to contribute to some of the language in the RFP. And these are things that you won't necessarily see the results of till they've been put in practice, right? So I'll caveat this with hopefully making lives easier and making processes more streamlined by contributing some of these things. And like I said before, just being some outside momentum on projects that just need an extra push. And I think I'm checking my time. I'm cognizant of the fact that I've probably been talking for a while. I'll show you just sort of, so that was sort of, I guess I would say the 5,000-foot level of what I've been doing. To sort of get into the 1/2-inch, I'll show you just a bit of the process and all of the thought that goes into things like technology transfer and setting up these systems. And one project in particular are project web pages. So again, like I said, I'm not suggesting anyone needs, some sort of fancy virtual reality thing to communicate their research projects. But at the end of the day, if you can do things like tune up research project pages using existing components from the university system, I think that can go an incredibly long way. So I'll take you through very quickly sort of my work looking at the Urban Stormwater Research Library. You can see on the screen sort of what the landing page looks like, as well as what one of the pages looks like. And I embarked on sort of a long process of designing, I guess, my own brief of trying to dig into these different component parts of audience, content, web architecture, the design, and the workflow, which I think is incredibly important to not sort of build something up, but not understand how we get there. And so this process involved, and this is where I brought in my sort of my web developer, I guess, skeleton in the closet. I don't really know how to phrase that, but things like a user story template to sort of work through conceptually what the different audiences who would be arriving at a project web page would want. Why are they there? Why are they there? What sorts of things do they need? Doing brainstorms on whiteboards and what I guess I would call market research. So looking at peer water research institutions and how they're presenting their research. I did some mapping of the website, flagging where links were sending to outside pages, trying to make sure that language was consistent across all the pages and making sure you weren't ever ending up in a sort of like a never-ending circle where you're click, click, click. Looking at sort of the institutional web development using components from the University of Minnesota's sort of back-end and front-end software, and then also diving deep into the dark world of grant management software to try to understand what sort of automations we could build. And so at the end of the day, putting together a sort of mock-up of these, but with the back-end sort of like, this is how the process would work to add this material in, this is where the information is coming from, this is how, if there's a future GreenCorps member who wants to put these together for future research projects, this is how they would go about doing that. This is where the information would come from. And so for more, and I would be remiss without thanking both John Bellotta and Maggie Karshnia. Maggie was my supervisor at my host site. If you have sort of more longer term than my next 3 weeks thoughts on the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council, to get in contact with them. I would encourage you guys to look at our annual report. As I mentioned before, there are 3 open board seats that are currently accepting nominations. Please attend one of their fabulous technology transfer events, a clean sweep workshop, a stormwater seminar series, and subscribe to the newsletter for more information on how you can get involved in the future. So that is what I have. Hopefully I haven't gone too much over time. And that's me.
That was great, Lenna. Perfect. Interesting. I'm thinking what we could do is hold questions until we hear from Becca, and then I think we have planned to save some time for questions for both of our speakers after that. So with that, it is a pleasure to introduce Becca, our second speaker. Becca Krasky is going to tell us about the work she's doing with the Blue Thumb Sustainable Landcare Training Program in Minneapolis. Metro Bloom's Blue Thumb's Sustainable Landcare Training teaches young adults from Minneapolis to care for and inspect green stormwater infrastructure like rain gardens and native plantings. With historic federal, state, and local investments in green infrastructure, the Sustainable Landcare Training aims to ensure that these resources provide pathways to good-paying jobs for people most impacted by environmental injustice. Becca is a Minnesota GreenCorps member serving at Metro Bloom's in Minneapolis, and prior to her GreenCorps term, she was active in the community food systems with experience working as a nonprofit community garden coordinator and at for-profit organic farms and food distributors. Becca has a bachelor's degree in geography and environmental studies from Macalester College. Becca, great to have you with us. Take it away.
Great. I'm glad to be here. And now I'm going to try to do the same thing and share my screen. you see my presentation?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Lenna, for that great presentation. I'm really going to pivot us to something totally different. So as I said, my name is Becca Krasky. I'm a GreenCorps member serving at Metro Blooms, which is a nonprofit in Minneapolis, and I'll be talking about our Blue Thumb Sustainable Landcare Training Program and also the mentor program that we are piloting this summer. Let's see. That's my slide. There we go. So Metro Blooms is a nonprofit based in Minneapolis, and we partner with communities to create resilient landscapes and foster clean watersheds. And we also really center environmental justice in our work. And Blue Thumb is the education program out of Metro Blooms, and it is also a partnership of nonprofits, government units, and for-profit businesses that do gardening, landscape design, native nurseries. And so Blue Thumb, I'm part of the Blue Thumb education team at Metro Blooms. And through that Blue Thumb partnership, through the Blue Thumb education team, I'm part of the Sustainable Landcare Training Program. Blue Thumb also runs the Lawns to Legumes program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which provides cost share grants to Minnesotans to install native landscapes. And we also run a series of workshops in the spring and fall around native landscaping and rain gardens. But I'll be focusing on our Sustainable Landcare Training, which is a program that creates pathways to green jobs and stormwater infrastructure. And we specifically focus on young adults in Minneapolis, recognizing that young people in Minneapolis are some of the most impacted by environmental injustice and also have an amazing potential to be part of the solution and to be part of our green workforce for the future. The Sustainable Landcare Training Program has had 3 cohorts this summer. Each of them are 3 different full days of training spaced 2 weeks apart, and we also have online content. Really amazingly, we pay people to attend the trainings. They get paid $20 an hour. They also get paid to do the online content. So it is also a decent work opportunity for them to just be attending the training. We focus on young people who are from environmental justice communities in North and South Minneapolis. Most of our trainees are people of color. And we cover a really wide range of topics. I'll say that the training program curriculum was developed by the Blue Thumb Partnership. So it's supposed to be really emphasizing the skills that our partners who are local governments, local watershed districts, we're hoping that people could be developing so that they could be hired into stormwater BMP maintenance and installation. So we're trying to focus on stormwater management, native and invasive plant identification, and stormwater best management practices. And then we also supplement that with discussions on environmental justice, on pollinators, and on financial well-being. I will talk a little bit about our training partners. So we are partnering with a lot of different organizations to put these trainings on. Our trainings are funded by the Minneapolis Green Careers Exploration Program, which is through the Department of Health. And so that is why right now the trainings are really focusing on Minneapolis residents. Metro Blooms Design and Build is our for-profit arm of Metro Blooms, and our landscape designers and architects out of Design and Build help run the trainings and teach the technical content. We've been hosting these trainings at Sabathani Community Center on the south side, and then the Regional Apprenticeship Training Center on the north side. We're also working with the City of Minneapolis Stormwater Management to provide next step opportunities for our participants, and I'll talk a little more about that in a moment. And then we have guest speakers from organizations like the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, Blue Hummingbird Woman, Dragon's Wind, and the Xerces Society. So trainees in their 18 hours with us really get a lot of different opportunities to engage with different types of organizations. So our training content consists of 18 hours of in-person training, which is spread out over 3 days that are spaced 2 weeks apart. And then participants also take 10 hours of asynchronous online content that's really focused on stormwater and best management practices. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of topics we try to cover in these trainings. We start off by introducing watersheds and stormwater, rain gardens, rain barrels, and best management practices to really give folks a strong grounding and understanding where stormwater comes from, where it goes, what the challenges are in Minnesota. We have a full day where we talk about native and introduced plants. And here this picture is of people using apps to identify some of the native plants in the rain garden at the Regional Apprenticeship Training Center, which has a really phenomenal rain garden. We talk about BMP inspections, and we actually offer participants the opportunity to do inspections across the city of Minneapolis for us. We have a contract with the city of Minneapolis Stormwater, and so we're able to pay folks to go out and inspect stormwater BMPs, and then we report those findings to the city. We also do pollinator surveying, introducing participants to the wide range of pollinators that can be found anywhere in Minneapolis. We really center environmental justice and have several conversations about environmental justice throughout the training. We also are really trying to emphasize Indigenous perspectives on environmental stewardship and native plants. And then finally, we also try to talk about financial health and career planning and trying to support trainees in the diverse challenges that they're facing in their lives and how they can move forward on their plans. And who are our trainees? They're young people of color from Minneapolis, mostly 18 to 24 years old. We do have some folks who are under 18, and we have some participants, if we're trying to fill the training, who are older. Many of our trainees are already enthusiastic about environmental work, but a lot of them are also just drawn to the opportunity to get paid to do something in the summer. We have a fair number of folks whose parents send them our way looking for something for their kid to do. And they hear about the training through organization partners and also their social networks. And we also post flyers around the neighborhood, and we have folks who just saw a flyer posted at a park and decide to check us out. And finally, I would say that our trainees are really eager to find work as part of the training. So they're really interested in the material we're offering, and they're looking for what they can do next. And so that is something that we're trying to really buckle down on as an organization, is figuring out how we can provide the most robust opportunities for people who are participating in the training to be able to move forward, because a lot of other training programs and apprenticeships within green careers often have next step employment opportunities really lined up for participants, and it's a little more complicated for green stormwater infrastructure. So that is something that we're really trying to focus on and moving forward on. So part of that is that this year they had the funding to pilot a mentor program to connect attendees with a mentor. And so this was my project specifically within the Sustainable Landcare training. It's the opportunity to help design a mentor program and then implement it. And we are just in the first month or so of people participating. And I've got some details here, but mentees, the goal is that they could build their network and develop their resume, practice job interviews, and make plans for reaching their goals, and really have a very individualized, supportive experience. So with a coworker, I designed a curriculum. We came up with a list of potential mentors of just people that Metro Blooms was networked with, who they thought could be good mentors for participants. And then at our first training, which happened in May and June, we identified participants who would be interested in meeting with a mentor. And we were able to offer them the opportunity to meet with a mentor for 15 hours, and we're paying them to be mentored. And we also were able to support mentors with payment as well. And our mentors come from a variety of organizations across the Twin Cities. Some are in academia, some work for local government, some work for Metro Blooms, and all of them are meeting individually one-on-one with a mentee, mostly to support them and just trying to figure out what their next steps are to support them in immediate needs. And I'll talk about just a couple outcomes that have happened so far. We have someone who was interested in possibly going to college, and his mentor helped him enroll in college. So he is going to Minneapolis Community College this summer or this fall, and is really excited. And I think that that maybe would not have happened if he hadn't been connected with this mentor. So that is a really cool outcome. Folks are addressing driver's license barriers that they're facing. They've really been connecting with mentors over shared experiences, doing a lot of networking, trying to understand, what their possible next steps could be, how they could get involved in green stormwater infrastructure, or even just figuring out their next steps in their career, as they're all just young people trying out a lot of different things. And then they're also really focusing on setting goals and figuring out what's standing in the way for them. And it's been really fun and also really challenging, I would say, for me to try to coordinate this program in which every mentee and every mentor pair has their own challenges, and trying to be available and supportive for all of them as we're having folks facing housing insecurity or justice involvement and all sorts of different challenges. Just, I don't know, supporting young people is always interesting. And I also wanted to mention the workforce development aspect. of our training programs. So we have paid stormwater infrastructure planting and inspection opportunities in collaboration with Minneapolis Surface Water and Sewers, which I mentioned earlier. And so those opportunities we're offering to everyone who's been part of the training this summer, which will be about 60 people total. And this is sort of like a little sampler of a green stormwater infrastructure position. None of the positions that we're offering are full-time or long-term in these inspection and planting, although Metro Blooms also does prioritize hiring for our, we have a Landcare crew that does maintenance of BMPs across Minneapolis, and we also have an installation crew that puts in rain gardens, and both of those crews do prioritize hiring trainees from the Sustainable Landcare training. So they do have employees who are part of that, who were former trainees, and that's something that will be going into the future. We're also working with the Blue Thumb Partnership to try to increase the amount of hiring that's happening from Sustainable Landcare trainees into the work with Blue Thumb partners, and trying to understand the barriers to how do we have someone who participates in this training get a special stamp on their resume or some sort of certification that can pass through HR at a county level. Is kind of that's the puzzle right now, is how do we really help shuttle folks into those jobs, because we hear from partners that they really want to be hiring our trainees, and then just trying to figure out how to bridge that gap, as Lenna was saying. And there are also challenges with workforce development. In green stormwater infrastructure, there's a challenge of year-round employment. A lot of positions are seasonal and summer only, especially if it comes to installation or being on Landcare crews. Transportation is a huge barrier for a lot of participants. Driver's licenses are expensive and cars are expensive. And even just getting to trainings can be difficult for trainees. And so we're always trying to brainstorm how to support them in that. We do offer a $150 training and work supplies stipend to everyone who participates in the Sustainable Landcare training, hoping that that helps them at least get to the trainings, but $150 obviously isn't going to buy you a car. So we're still kind of figuring that out. Also, a lot of trainees are involved in the justice system and trying to help them navigate that. And also identifying how we can, just support people wherever they are in that process. And then finally, another challenge has been ensuring content that's both relevant to participants and also prepares them for employment. So trying to make sure that we're technical enough that folks are getting the skills they need and not too technical that it goes right over their heads, because we really do dive right into stormwater infrastructure, and that can be a totally new concept for folks. And we're trying to make sure it's relevant to their lives, regardless of what their goal is in attending this training, because we know that some folks are attending the Sustainable Landcare training because they're just looking for something to do for a couple days in the summer, and other folks are attending because they really want this to be their future career. So trying to figure out how we can reach everybody and provide content that is relevant to all of those different experiences and expectations. It's definitely a challenge, and something that it's been really neat to see just how different sessions affect participants differently, and how everyone kind of gets what they want out of the training. So a couple closing thoughts I have when I was thinking about who you all are and how you're interfacing with green stormwater infrastructure. I've just have some questions for you, which is think about how your organization is recruiting and training a diverse workforce. Wondering what pathways can be created to employ those most impacted by environmental injustice. And finally, how can we make sure that historic investments in green infrastructure benefit communities? And we hope that the Sustainable Landcare training is trying to address some of those questions, and are definitely looking for more partners in figuring out how we can move trainees from the training to long and supportive employment. So I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Okay, well now, yes, thank you very much for your presentation, Becca and Lenna. Now is the time for all of you that have questions or want to learn more about anything that our GreenCorps members have shared with you, is your time to ask those questions. So if you want to go ahead and put a question in the chat, we can do it that way, or you can just raise your hand and I will unmute you and we can do it that way. Or maybe you can unmute yourself. I am not sure WebEx has made lots of changes over the last month, so. All right, we do have a comment in there. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see the comments there, but it's fabulous work, Becca and Lenna, from Joanne. And looks like we do have a question. How do folks sign up? This is for Becca. How do folks sign up for the program?
So we have a Google form that we use. I would say that we don't post our the training application publicly because the Blue Thumb partnership, like Blue Thumb Network, has so many followers across the state, especially because we run the Lawns to Legumes program, and we're really trying to target this program at young people of color from environmental justice communities in Minneapolis. That if we posted it publicly, there would just be too many applications for the 60 spots that we can offer. And so we mostly recruit folks through partner organizations and through like direct street. We post signups in places where those folks are living in environmental justice communities. But we also, do take, if folks have a suggestion for someone, we definitely respond to folks when they get sent our way. So.
Great, thank you. And then it looks like we have another question for Becca. Are there organizations you worked with that would be interested in an ongoing dialogue with us at the state on environmental justice and water in particular?
That's a good question. Yeah, well, we've been working with Tara Perrin, who's a Dakota Ojibwe leader, and she owns the Blue Hummingbird Women's Store in St. Paul. And she's really active on water issues and water ceremonies. And we just had a great conversation with her yesterday, actually, about environmental justice. And so I would say that Native involvement is definitely something that we're supporting. Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that, our trainees are also, some folks have heard about environmental justice and have had a lot of conversations about it. For some people, it's a really new topic, even though it's something that they've lived. They have lived experience in environmental justice, and is, definitely something that a lot of folks leave the training wanting to know more about and experience more about. And it's something that we send more resources to people after the training's about. I'll keep thinking on that one. And I would say that Metro Blooms is also always interested in engaging around environmental justice and very active in local environmental justice fights. So.
Great, thank you, Becca. There was one other question here is for you, Becca, how does the paying of the trainees get funded?
So that is part of our contract with the City of Minneapolis GreenCorps Exploration Program. So they support a lot of programs that pay people to attend trainings. And so that is how we support that.
Great, thank you. And then we have a question for Lenna. What plans do you have in place to ensure your template streamlining gets used in the future?
Yeah, I think that sort of is the question, right? I think there's sort of a two-part answer. First is documentation. So for templates, there's sort of a documentation of how to use it, when to use it. But more importantly, the second piece is socialization. So already with the annual meeting last week, getting research teams used to the idea that there will be a template that they can use to communicate their research results, I think is a great first step. Part of the sort of, I guess, process improvements we've been working on is increasing touch points. I know everyone loves another meeting added to their calendar, but increasing touch points with research teams to specifically talk about how they're delivering on technology transfer and have discussions about the specific audiences for their specific research project. And I think that is a great venue to make sure sort of that the process doesn't get lost, that this isn't something that comes up at the very end the very end of a research project where you're sort of like, oh shoot, my funding runs out next week. Have I actually done everything I said I would do in the proposal? But making sure that gets moved forward.
Great, thank you, Lenna. We do have another question here for Becca. Do you know if there is a similar program for St. Paul and surrounding suburbs? I'm thinking about Mexican communities that live in the St. Paul area.
And that is a great question. And right now, no, I do not think there is. So right now, the Sustainable Landcare training just focuses on Minneapolis because of our contract with Minneapolis Health Department. This program has also grown very quickly. So this is only the second year that they've had a contract with the city of Minneapolis. Prior to that, this curriculum was developed and mostly used for like local governments that wanted to train their employees on stormwater best management practices. And so they've kind of shifted the program to really focus on young people from environmental justice communities. And also this program is in a lot of development because my supervisor left at the beginning of the summer. And so me and the executive director, our executive director at Metro Blooms, Laura, have been running the trainings without a full-time staff person to coordinate them. So I really got to jump in big time, but they are hiring for a new person to be coordinating the trainings. And so I think that that's definitely something to be considered for the future, is expanding. Although even running 3 trainings and 3 cohorts in Minneapolis is already quite a lot for the summer. So I think it would be really awesome to expand it to other parts of the Twin Cities to be able to make it more expansive. And we already do have a lot of interest from people outside of Minneapolis. So.
Awesome, great, thank you. We have another question here for Lenna. Has your template been used already?
Is there a specific template you're curious about? I suppose if not, I can sort of speak to broadly. The really short answer is yes. The sort of long answer is that sort of depending on the use case. I guess they're starting to be used. I don't know if I've answered that particularly well, but things like a slide deck template absolutely have already been put into place. Things like document templates, not so much yet. Yeah, I guess I would. Yeah, go for it.
Lenna, this is Aida, the person who made the question, is because I was thinking that if it has been implemented, if somebody has already used it, it would be a good example for that person to pass on the knowledge that they got from using the templates, basically so that your work doesn't languish and somebody uses it and then it kind of spreads around.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I think to that end too, I think there's the feedback loop, right? Of I can set up these templates with all of the needs of these different groups in mind. But at the end of the day, we sort of need that feedback loop of, hey, that didn't really work for what I needed it to. I need a bigger library of photos to pull from, or this phrasing doesn't make sense, or these colors don't work for my institutional branding that I need, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's absolutely a great point. And I mean, my sort of hope, right, is that any sort of template or tool that we spin up for researchers to use, they can then use outside of when we're asking them to present to us, right? So suddenly if they have a good ending slide of how they can communicate their research results, or a very succinct way to describe an impact statement, all of a sudden you can start to see that in their presentations at conferences or other ways. So it does sort of snowball, to your point, that then other people see it and start to use it. And yeah, start to associate it with, I think, the program as a whole. Because I think that's a part of this, is sort of everything adds up, right? If you can have a sort of consistency across every communication and output, then it starts to build the profile of the program, which then attracts more funders, and then you have a wider pool of researchers applying for the funding as well.
Great, thank you, Lenna. I don't see any more questions in the chat.
I have one.
So, Mark, I knew
If-
you would.
Yep, if no one else has one to put in the chat right now, I just kind of a comment / question for both of you. It seems to me, hearing both of your presentations, that you are both really doing what I would say is, for lack of a better term, cutting edge work on kind of old problems in a way. And I find that kind of inspiring. I mean, whether it's working with stormwater issues and bringing a new focus to how that's done, right? And that transfer, kind of involving non-professionals in the area. It seems like a really effective way to get our messaging out and to get communities focused on something that we think is very important in a way that maybe we haven't pursued before. And Lenna, your work on your templates, it seems like this kind of cutting edge work on making the research that is being done out there visible and communicable in ways that, we really need. And I'm kind of wondering, I guess my question part of that is, do you see your work as opening up new avenues to that effectiveness of the kind of work that we're trying to do here? And maybe you could comment on that a little bit. I mean, are these areas that maybe we should be spending more time on that we haven't?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for the comment. It's always flattering to be called cutting edge, so thank you for that. I think, yeah, I mean, ideally in sort of I'm going to talk as I think here a little bit. I think one of the sort of goals that I had going into my service year, and especially sort of understanding the project at hand, is that, and I am always a broken record about process, and asking the right question at the right time, was that making sure things were replicable and that you start to have that a sort of question as a worm in your brain, right? About thinking about the audience at the end and how you communicate. So even being the broken record over the last year, thinking about it, I think will continue to pay dividends, even if I am not the one in the room saying it. So I think, yeah, I don't know if I've addressed that question particularly well, but I think a lot of what the Stormwater Research Council's research program and technology transfer have been doing astounding work that is truly cutting edge, and it was just having a little extra time. In the Water Resources Center, we'll be hiring a full-time extension educator to sort of take this work on, to be a sort of technology transfer focused individual. So I think that will give it legs as well, and sort of pass the mantle onto them to take it forward in the future and think creatively about it. Which I think I see Peter has a comment in the chat. Yeah, and I think in some ways that addresses your question there, that they have sort of used the GreenCorps year to understand that there needs to be additional capacity for this. Maggie and John do phenomenal work with the time that they have, but there needed to be more hours on the clock, more time in the day. So.
Thank you, Lenna. And I don't know, Becca, if you had anything to add on to Mark's initial comment and question at all, but if you don't, that's okay. I just wanted to check in.
I would just say that it has been really fun experiencing stormwater with young people. And also, I would say I'm new to stormwater. This has really been quite an introduction to understanding it, but especially this summer, experiencing historic amounts of rainfall. We had a lot of rain during our trainings, and actually 2 weeks ago when we had that micro burst, the huge downpour, we were 8 blocks from our training facility out looking at a rain garden with participants, and they got to experience stormwater flooding because they were in a stormwater flood. And really, I think everyone who attends the training says that they really look at stormwater differently. They had no idea what those holes in the ground were. They didn't know that the water flowed to the Mississippi River. They didn't know what a native plant was. And so even I think just in increasing literacy around environmental issues, even for folks who aren't going to get involved in stormwater for the rest of their lives, it's still really is impactful for everyone to just understand a little more about the environment around them. So.
Great, thank you. I am not seeing any other comments or questions in the chat. I will make a comment on the Clean Sweep program that Lenna had mentioned. They are doing great work and trying to kind of get out there, and we actually are partnering with them. The chloride reduction program is partnering with Clean Sweep for an event coming up in August. We are going to have a street sweeping and a salt truck showdown. So we are looking forward to that in August. We're still finalizing the details to find a location to host it, but it will be in August, and it's going to be the Sweeping and Salting Showdown. So we are looking forward to that opportunity to partner with the Clean Sweep program, and we're hoping if it's successful that we can offer more of these workshops. And so just kind of think about that, and all of these things that you hear, like, are there any interactions or ways you could team up with some of the work that's going on out there? So we're excited to partner with the Clean Sweep program on the salting side of things. So and yes, attend the Stormwater Seminar Series that is hosted by the U of M, and MPCA Stormwater Program is a partner on that. So they always have some really great speakers lined up for those. I think they're Thursdays. I don't know if they overlap with our water issues talk. That might be, we might be promoting something.
I think they're back to back, so you can do both.
Okay, so you can do both on the same day. There you go. Well, if we don't have any other questions or comments for our speakers, I will go ahead and just thank both of you for your time. We do really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you have to pull together your presentations and think about your audience and modify things. And so I know a fair amount of time went into preparing. And of course, we ask you for bios. And so I really appreciate that you're willing to take the time to share your work, because I do think it's important. You guys are doing really great work. This is just one way to let everyone know that this great work exists, and who knows what future connections and movement can happen in those areas just because you kind of opened the door for folks to know and maybe create some new opportunities. So thank you for that, and congratulations on a successful GreenCorps service term, and I hope you had a great experience in this program, and we look forward to hearing what you do in your future careers. I'm sure it'll be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invite, and thanks to everyone for sticking around.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you all.
All right. Yes. Well, everybody have a great rest of your day. That's an order. Everybody just have great days. All right. And you guys take care, and we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.